Still concerned about losing Gwen to Flash, Peter decides he can't put off meeting her any longer. It's time to confront Gwen directly. Meanwhile, a lonely Gwen gazes out her window, consumed by guilt over how her words may have caused Aunt May's departure. She wonders if she's the source of Peter's misery, fearing he hates her, given his distant and formal tone on their recent call. Finally, Peter arrives. When Gwen opens the door, he bluntly asks if there's anything at all between her and Flash. Relieved, Gwen hugs Peter, reassuring him that she and Flash are only friends and he has nothing to worry about. Later, the couple attends a fundraiser supporting mayoral candidate Richard Raleigh, where they meet Mary Jane. As they sit for the event, they discuss how younger people are now getting involved in politics, sparking Peter's hope for positive change. But his spider sense suddenly goes off, and making an excuse about his stomach ulcer acting up, Peter leaves to prevent a disaster. After the event, Gwen finds Peter in the crowd, and when he claims he was worried for her, she brushes his concern aside. Then, Peter escorts Gwen and Mary Jane home. While MJ is lost in her own world daydreaming about Raleigh, Gwen muses about Spider-Man's brief appearance at the event, but her attention suddenly falls on a web on Peter's jacket. While amused by Peter's startled reaction, Gwen chalks it up to Spider-Man's webs falling on almost everyone, just after he had webbed up the roof to stop it from caving in. The next day, Peter arrives at the youth rally for the mayoral candidate, where he meets Gwen and MJ. After Gwen stops Peter from eating a hot dog in order to stop a flare-up of his ulcer, Peter's spider sense fires. He then ducks out to battle the Disruptor, as another of Raleigh's events is sabotaged. After taking on the Disruptor, Peter spots his friends on the streets, doing some last-minute electioneering for Raleigh. Minutes later, he meets Gwen and gives her a kiss, unbothered by MJ and Harry's presence. While Gwen assists Mary Jane with campaigning in the sound truck, a giant villain called the Smasher suddenly appears, threatening the group. The group narrowly escapes before the villain smashes the campaign truck. As Peter storms off to battle the villain, Gwen frantically asks him where he's going, but Peter has no time to answer her. Some time later, while Peter is in Canada dealing with personal business for Aunt May and battling the Hulk, he calls to check in on Gwen. She urges him to return to the States as quickly as possible, revealing that Harry has suffered a relapse from his previous drug overdose. Though Peter must first finish his business in Canada, he promises to be back as soon as he can. Returning to New York, Spider-Man watches through his apartment window as Gwen and Mary Jane stand at Harry's bedside. Gwen questions the doctor on what is wrong, and he reveals Harry was given a shot to counteract the LSD that he took and is now suffering from schizophrenia. At this, Peter quickly changes into his civilian clothes and rushes inside, where Gwen meets him in the hall. Just then, Norman Osborn demands the group leave, claiming their so-called help isn't wanted. Gwen asks Peter why Norman acted that way, but Peter can only respond that some people just hate do-gooders, unsure of what else to tell her. As they reach the street, Gwen feels terrible for Harry, unable to understand why he became so desperate. Peter has no answer, and when he asks MJ what she thinks, she just looks down, admitting she doesn't know either. Meanwhile, Norman Osborn, blaming Peter for Harry's condition, begins to crack under the pressure, reverting to his Green Goblin persona. He vows that Peter must die for what he has done to both him and his son. At the same time, Gwen Stacy returns to Peter's apartment alone, still pondering what dark turn in Harry's life led him to drugs, as the ominous answer to that question looms behind her, hovering on a goblin glider. Returning home, Peter finds a pumpkin next to Gwen's handbag lying on the floor. He immediately departs to find her. Guided by his spider sense, he is drawn to the George Washington Bridge, where the silhouette of the goblin calls for him. As Spider-Man approaches, the Green Goblin says he has his woman, declaring that either Spider-Man or Gwen Stacy will die that night. Enraged by the threat, Peter battles the goblin with everything he has, attempting to get to Gwen. However, just before Peter can reach her, the goblin swoops down, knocking her off the side of the bridge. As Gwen's body plummets towards the icy waters, Peter shoots a web line in an attempt to save her, but the whiplash snaps Gwen's neck, and she instantly dies. Peter assumes he successfully saved her, but after he pulls her back up and cradles her lifeless body, he realizes that she is dead. The goblin taunts Peter, claiming that she was dead before his webbing reached her, as a fall from that height would kill anyone. Holding the lifeless body of Gwen in one arm, Spider-Man raises his fist into the air and vows to destroy the goblin for the death of the woman he loved. As the goblin taunts Spider-Man that the woman he loves is dead and that he will soon be joining her, Peter counters that the goblin alone will die. Swinging Gwen's body down to the docks below, Peter is consumed by the tragic loss and he swears vengeance, immediately swinging back to engage in battle. But the goblin manages to escape, and as Spider-Man returns to Gwen's body, He demands the bystanders back away as he spends his last moments with her, reflecting on their entire relationship. He remembers the time from their first day of college all the way until they found themselves in love. The happiness, the tragedy, the sorrow, the self-pity, the joy, and the fear. Through it all, he remembers Gwen. And then he remembers Spider-Man, how Gwen was a victim of his, how Spider-Man stood between them, how he stood between their happiness, and in the end, how Spider-Man stood between Gwen and life itself. Then, as he sets Gwen gently down, an officer informs Spider-Man that an ambulance is there. But Peter responds with raw emotion that she doesn't need an ambulance, she's dead, and Spider-Man killed her. After Peter tracks down Norman and engages in a final brutal battle, where the Goblin seemingly meets his end, Peter finally returns home, finding only Mary Jane there, waiting for him. She tries to console Peter, saying she heard about Gwen, but Peter lashes out at her, mocking her usual carefree nature. Then he tells her to leave and that he wouldn't want to spoil her fun. However, Mary Jane decides to stay to comfort Peter regardless, marking the beginning of a pivotal turning point in their relationship.